Hope everyone is doing well this morning. It's our last session together this morning, so I'd like to thank everybody for sticking around and making it through all the sessions. Last week, everyone took an opportunity to do the mock exam. I have the results from that. There's quite a few people that did well on the exam, so congratulations. There are also several people that were very, very close to achieving a passing mark, which is great because we just have a little more work to do, and I think those people will be where they need to be. I think the best use of our time this morning, being our last session, will be to step through the questions on the exam, those 100 questions, and just clarify any gray areas, maybe talk about some questions, the best way to, if there's troubles with a question, maybe it's just how it's worded and how to figure out that wording. Any questions before we get going?
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, it's not exactly a question, but just to clarify that I know my mark wasn't all that, but it's not because I don't understand the work or anything. It's just that I haven't had any time really to go over everything. I was only able to fully commit to, I think, maybe 3 or 4 classes because of how work was. But right now, because of our situation here in our country, I have a bit more time on my hands, so I'm appreciative of the recordings. So I go over them like last week, and I went over most of it. So I believe that at the exams I will do a lot better.
Yeah, I can the stuff that's going on around your corner of the country and stuff is definitely takes priority over some of the other things for sure. So definitely take some time, or when you get some time, review the recordings and stuff and make use of those. The last one or two, there was some we really broke, or sorry, the last session we really broke down the math, kind of laid that out. So make sure you take some time and go through that one for sure. All right, good. Kia.
Yeah, reviewing the paper after it was corrected, I realized that there was a couple errors on the paper. Questions that I got wrong were actually correct when I checked back the notes. Like the first one, where
like the first one, yeah. We'll go through. I'm planning on going through each question this morning, and I was waiting for somebody to mention the first one because you're absolutely right. There's a typo in that.
And then number 11, when I got it wrong and it told me it was no correct answer, and it was like, okay. Yeah. One more question. The exam is 3 hours or 2 hours?
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions before we get going?
Yes, question. When exactly is the exams again?
Ignatius, can you answer that one? Ignatius, we had a question of when the
oh sorry, my apologies, I missed that. I was trying, my mute was on. Yes, we are that's for next Friday. I think Suzanne has it scheduled, and I think she had circulated the registration forms to you, some of you directly, because she got the listing of all those participants in this program. And if you have not yet received it, please do follow up with her soonest. I'll put her email address again this morning, but I know that she had circulated and copied to your HR managers. Okay, so that's the Friday, the 19th is the exam, the ABC exam. No, I think it's Friday the 20th. Yeah, Friday the 20th. So please follow up if you haven't yet done so.
And those are the new exams that you have now? So all the EPA questions, or the majority of those, that type of thing, have been removed, right?
Yes, we had a communication with the Secretariat of the ABC, and they asked us to, we did the formal thing to request the changes, and they would have done that this time around.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, morning. I was just wondering if now with the changes, if the mass will be a metric or it will be an imperial.
It's going to be in both. As far as I understand from ABC, it will each question will have both metric and imperial in the same question.
Okay, thanks.
I know that the mock exam was all in metric, so, but it's good to know both and get used to using both anyhow. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to share my screen. We'll go through the mock exam, and I'm glad somebody mentioned the first question, because there was an error on that. Ignatius, my screen sharing is disabled.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Hey, it's early in the morning.
Okay,
There,
well, I think
there we
we're
go.
on now.
Yeah, I got her. Thank you.
All right, good.
So now this isn't in a PowerPoint, so you won't be able to see my face necessarily unless you bring up both windows. I'm just gonna get the chat up here. All right. Okay. So the first question. This is the one with the typo error, and everybody that picked B, measles, was actually correct. Any comments on that one? And it'd be a little easier for me this morning if you can chime in with your microphones, so I don't have to flip back and forth trying to make sure I didn't miss any chats. So if possible, when we hit something, if you have a question, if you could chime in with your mic, that'd be great. If not, I'll try and flip back and forth. The second question, everybody got that right. The chemical for water. So great job on that one. Number 3, so which is not a source of wastewater. And remember, when you do the exams, you gotta watch out for that word not. It does change the whole context of the question. So transpiration is the water movement through a plant. So that's the correct answer. Domestic is from a house, commercial is from like a laundry facility or something like that, and institutional is maybe from a correctional institution, but those are all sources of water, and transpiration is not. Like I said, if I'm going to go through and explain some of these, if you have any, I'm going to need you to chime in if you have any questions or need some more clarification. Okay. Number 4, everybody got that correct, so good job. Number 5, the physical characteristics of wastewater don't include, the correct answer there is taste. So remember, anything physical, so turbidity, you can see, temperature, you can feel, color, you can see, and solids obviously as well. So taste is something that's not considered a physical characteristic, and you shouldn't be tasting that anyhow. Organic substances are composed of, everybody got that correct, so that's awesome. Phosphorus is a blank when released to the effluent, so that's a nutrient. So phosphorus and nitrogen are like things that you might add to your garden or your grass if you want it to grow, because it's a nutrient source. Wouldn't be classified as an accelerant. It accelerates what's happening because it is a nutrient, but that it's not an accelerant. It's definitely not a retardant. So just just try and remember that, try and put some of the things in context when you're writing them, or when you're reading them, is like, what else could you use phosphorus for? And like you said, a garden or a lawn, because it's a nutrient. Okay. Channel 3 meters wide, have flow to a depth of 0.5 meter. What's the daily flow in meters cubed per day through a channel? Velocity is 1 meter per second. So it gives you the calculation there. So its rate of flow is width times depth times velocity. The only other thing that you need to remember is the flow rate or the velocity is meters per, or 1 meter per second in this question. So you have to multiply 3 by 0.5 by 1, and then you need to take seconds into a daily flow. So multiply by 60 seconds a minute times 60 minutes an hour times 24 hours in a day. Questions on that one? I'll pause a little longer on some of the math ones. So. Okay. Dissolved oxygen in the aerator is consumed by. Now, I could see where if a person read this question really quickly, the majority of people got this 100% correct. So it's microorganisms that need the DO to survive. Algae would, consume oxygen, but that's not what the question is asking. So the word aerator, it could have been aeration tank rather than aerator or something, but it definitely doesn't say anything about lagoons. So algae would not be right in this answer. It had to be microorganisms. Um, 10, the job hazards, everybody got that correct. Okay, so now I'm not quite sure what happened on this because it has zero correct responses, but one of them has to be correct.
Yeah, this is the question I was telling you about that didn't have any correct answer.
I think that's may have been my bad, Mike, in putting in the questions. I may have missed ticking it out.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
That's cool. We'll just take a second and go through it. So
yeah, I'll go through I think I should have had the correct answers. I'll have to pick up the file.
Yeah, no problem. I will. If you guys give me a second, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it for you.
I'm going to go through the math on my handy dandy iPhone because we all have calculators. Keep in mind that they won't let you use your iPhone as a calculator in the exam. You're going to need an actual calculator. So this is cylindrical tank. So it's 0.785 times diameter squared times 3 times the height is 70.65 cubic meters, and there's 1,000 liters in cubic meters. So the right answer is 70,600. I come up with 650, but it's 686.
Yeah, the correct answer is 129,600. I think what B is the correct answer.
B, correct.
According to the page you sent. That was my bad. I apologize for that.
Okay. So thank you. Yeah, so everybody that picked B, which was the majority of the people, was right.
If you had B, you would have been right. I think it shows there. So you should have scored an additional point.
So just remember on the for any of the cylinder tank questions or round tank questions, it's the easiest one for me is 0.785 times diameter squared. So 0.785 times 3, it's 10 meters high. So multiply by 10, and that there's 1,000 liters in a cubic meter. So you have to multiply that answer by 1,000. When I did this on my phone quickly here, I came up with 70,650.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, when you come across a math question, you might be in or out by a few numbers, only because it depends on how you round it up to the nearest decimal places and that type of thing. So you got to pick the one that's closest to your answer, or the correct answer.
Yeah, I actually got the exact number because I used the whole pi as
Okay.
function. Pi function. If you use the pi function on your calculator, it would give
Right.
you the exact.
So you used pi times
Pi r squared by d.
yeah, so pi times 1.5 1.5 by 10 then. Okay, yeah, either one of those works, and yeah, it's a good response depending on what you use in your how many decimal places, whether you use a full pi or not, is going to change that answer a little bit. So okay, awesome. pH being acidic, just remember that lower than 7 would be acidic, and higher than 7 is basic. Okay. These are tough questions. You got to remember from our. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I think it was when we. Sorry, my screen moved there. We talked about the average concentration of wastewater, and 200 is right around the number for raw wastewater. Remember, and to really read the questions. I'm not quite sure why my screen's moving so much, but really read the question, and it's asking for raw wastewater, not mixed liquor or something like that. So it's going to have to commit that one to memory.
Before you go, question.
Mm-hmm.
When I went back and checked the notes, it actually said, I don't remember seeing it being 200. Because 200 was the suspended solids. If I could pull back the PowerPoint. This is one I had to query, because when I checked the PowerPoints, and it said that 450 would have been the total concentration. So for raw sewage, the average total.
I think somewhere in the notes, and I don't remember the exact range off. That's
It was in a table. I can see if I can pull out the PowerPoint and get back to you.
Okay. All right. Well, you're looking for that. I'm going to carry on. Okay. Rectangular tank. What's pumping rate? So most people got this one correct. So that's awesome. Just remember that you have to figure out the volume of the tank. And then how long it takes, and then you got to divide by the length of time that is pumping into that tank. Okay. Questions on that one? So quite a few answers on this chlorine dose question, kilograms per day. Take a look at the last PowerPoint from the last session, covered chlorine dosages in there, in the step-by-step calculation. The majority of people got this right, which is correct. But all I can say is just go back to that PowerPoint and really study those. I think there was 6 or 8 slides where I broke down the math questions to go through them. Again, don't focus all your time on the math. If you have a problem with a math question or you're curious, just pass it and go back to it in the exam, because there's only a few of those, and better to get 90% on the exam and have less time spending on the math. 16, everybody got that correct. It's awesome. So preliminary treatment, just remember that if you remember the schematics of our plants, and so preliminary treatment, screening, grit removal, commutation, that's everything basically before it's hitting maybe your raw pumps or your primary tank. So that's all classified as preliminary at the beginning of the plant. Another way, if you're trying to figure out questions like this, you can think about it is maybe if you're dealing with lift station stuff, what might be outside of a plant, right? So, or what's removed from the wastewater flow before it affects the plant. So definitely screenings, grit removal, and commutation would be considered in that. So.
Hi, excuse me, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, I found the PowerPoint slide. It said the solids typically presented in a normal medium strength raw wastewater can be broken down in like this. So organic suspended is 200, dissolved suspended is 200, which give you a total of 300. The inorganic suspended would be 50. The inorganic dissolved will be 100, and that total will be 150. So the overall total would have been 450. So that's what because I remember reading this in the notes, so that's why I said none of the above. It is in the.
So I don't have the slide in front of me. Can you just read off those numbers again?
Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna stand close to the slide. All right. The organic suspended solids were 200. The organic dissolved would be 100, giving a total of 300. And then the inorganic would be suspended would be 50, and the dissolved would have been 100, giving a total of 150. So 300 and 150 is 450. So that's what.
So in these types of questions, I totally agree with you. I understand what's in what you're putting on the slide. This question would have probably been better worded if it was organic solids. Questions like this, better off to assume that they're talking about organics rather than total solids, which could include inorganics. That's about the best clarification I can give you. So I totally understand where you're coming from. If the questions aren't worded, I'm not sure about the exams because I don't have those, but hopefully if they say total solids, they're, I would assume that they're going to be talking organics, which is going to give you a range anywhere from 200 to 300. So you'd have to pick question A there. But I can see where you're coming from with
Okay.
organics and inorganics.
All right, no problem. All right.
Thanks. That's why we're here, is to talk about these things. 18, which is not a grit removal system. Bar screens is 100% correct there. Remember that the aerated grit chambers we talked about, there are aerated grit channels where air is injected to create flow that or direction of flow that takes the wastewater, basically throws it against the side of the tank, changes that velocity of that water where the grit then settles out on the sides of the tank and then is removed at the end. So there are aerated grit chambers are a grit removal system. Okay. Pretty much everybody got this right, which is not a function of pre-aeration tank. And remove taste and odors is 100% correct. You're going to run across questions like this, and they will be on the exam. I really don't. I really don't like these questions. You know, it's like, what's the least important function of a primary clarifier? But rather than being worded in a different fashion, but it's keep the wastewater fresh is not what the primary clarifier is designed for. You're removing sludge off the bottom, scum off the top. Okay. The rate of settling of a particulate in water mainly depends on the size and the shape of the particle. I think we covered that quite a bit. Specific gravity, temperature of the wastewater, flow through the tank, all have an impact. But I think if you remember from our slide, we talked about mainly when the question is depends mainly on, and the keyword there is mainly, it's the shape and size of the particle. Formula expressed for detention time in a vessel, volume divided by the flow rate through the vessel. That's 100% correct. You wouldn't want to, for those that pick question B, you wouldn't want to flip that calculation around, right? It's the volume's got to be on top and flow rate on the bottom. Okay. I think we went through some detention time calculations in that as well, in that PowerPoint. Anaerobic digestion uses two groups of microorganisms, and they're classed as acid formers and methane formers. That's correct. Question A, or answer A, types of bacteria. When we talked about digestion, we talked about aerobic and anaerobic digestion, right? Using different temperatures, different bacteria, but it's definitely the acid formers and methane formers for anaerobic digestion. Okay. The question B would be more centered around temperatures. Okay. Of the digester, and question A kind of mixes, or answer A kind of mixes, like the first section, or the first bacteria mentioned there would be more in lagoons, and then you have anaerobic bacteria, but definitely not lagoons. Anaerobic digestion is acid formers and methane formers. Most common methods of disposal, D is the right answer, landfilling. A lot of people do that. Land application as well. And incineration is used, and sometimes we covered that a little bit as well, but definitely all three of them. Okay.
Hello, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question on this. So last week you had taught us that we should look at the words, like the most common. So that's why I think a lot of us picked landfill instead of all of the above, because we thought it would just be one, if that makes sense from the wording.
Yeah, good, really good point.
Yeah, but then it said,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, but then it says methods. It said most common, yes, but then the word method is in plural. So for me, it was, yep, all of the above, because it was plural in terms of method.
Yeah, if you're going to step through that question, that's exactly right. It's looking for multiple methods. Definitely, yeah, I can see where you go. The most common, and you'd be picking landfilling or land application possibly, but they're looking for multiple answers there with methods. The really good to figure out that part of the that kind of part of the question, and how to get closer to your answer. So And they're not trick questions, they're just, it's just the way they're worded. Which is the following is not a component of activated sludge. Most everybody got that correct. So if you remember when for those that didn't, just remember that when we break down our systems and the schematics that were shown, you have your preliminary treatment and then your primary treatment, your secondary treatment. And in secondary treatment, you've got aeration system, secondary clarifiers, and the return activated sludge is part of, or return system is part of that secondary clarification system. So the only answer you're left with is primary. Some of the operating variables of an activated sludge system, most everybody got that right. Again, it's looking, if you look at the question of variables, it's looking for multiples. Aeration time, dissolved oxygen, and F to M ratio are definitely part of that activated sludge system. So again, just when you do the exam, slow down, really try and figure out the questions and what they're looking for, okay? So I'm pretty sure we covered mixed liquor, suspended solids, and the math part of that. Again, if you got some questions, go through that math section. The majority of people got this correct, so that's really good. For those that didn't, if you make sure you, like, this is a question, if math is not your strong point, I know I sound like a broken record sometimes, but just skip this question and come back to it. Better to spend your time on questions that you're more comfortable with. And I'm not telling everyone to guess the answers, but at the end, if you're nearing the end of the exam and you don't have all your answers filled in, better off to pick a guess on a question like this rather than leave it blank, because blank is wrong. If you had to guess, at least you got a 25% chance of hitting the mark. And there are a lot of people that took this mock exam that were only missed the 70% mark by a few answers. So like I said, just go through the math, PowerPoints, and like 2 or 3 answers, and you'll be exactly where you need to be. I can't remember the exact numbers, but we'd be up around 11 people that took the exam that achieved a pass mark if they had anywhere from 3 to 5 answers correct. So that's really, really close. So that's a really good job. And I got to say that doing all of this via PowerPoint and online, it's been tough for everyone, and so I appreciate everybody sticking with it, but and everybody's doing a really good job. Just keep going. You're just about there, and you're doing well. So 28 sludge age, everybody got that? That's in days. That's correct. Extended aeration is often used in smaller treatment plants. That's correct. Some people picked sewage lagoons. We did talk about lagoons that had, polishing tanks or finishing lagoons with possibly aeration, but extended aeration being a smaller plant for sure, to try and treat the flow as effectively as possible. Large plants with extended aeration, you need a lot of tankage, a lot of equipment to make that happen. So A is the right answer there. Which of the following is not a part of the trickling filter? The filtration system, that's correct. So the media, again, this is not part of a trickling filter. So it has media for the biofilm to grow on. It's got the under drain system, which supports the media and allows flow through, and the distribution system If you remember from our pictures, that round arm that distributed the flow. So those are all parts. And this is what's not part of a trickling filter. Okay, well, that was just, I'm just going back and forth. I try and remember to flip back to the chat and take a look. So the rate of flow of a trickling filter distributed arm is controlled by flow regulator, valve tank, gate valves. So I'm not even sure we talked about this exactly. I can't remember. It's been a few months now, but C is the right answer there. Baffled tank, definitely not. Flow regulator, I could see why people would pick that. But if you're not sure, take that text and put it into Google, and it'll do a search on that, and it'll show you exactly what that is. And gate valves, they can be used to control flow, but not in. That's not what the question is answering or asking. Sorry. So depending on loading rates, yeah, we talked about trickling filters, standard, high rate, and roughing. So roughing is, like almost like a pre-treatment trickling filter. High rate, you're getting a lot of flow, a lot of loading, and then the standard ones. So all of the above is the correct answer there. When this question, depending on the hydraulic and organic loadings, might tend to let you pick that there's got to be more than one, and you might not remember all of these, but at least what I try and do is, at least if you know a couple things, so you got a standard rate and a high rate, so there's at least two, and then you could pick. Well, there isn't a choice to just pick two, so it's got to be three, which is or all of the above. 33. Several important operating variables which affect the operation of aerobic digestion systems. Retention time, air supply, definitely. Loading and SVI are going to affect those as well. So, hey, this is another question or another example of, if it's aerobic digestion, so you have air supply. So, okay, that's important. Solids, how long it's in the tank, that's important. Right there, you have two answers that are important. So you kind of look at the other ones, and you'd have no choice but to pick, or you should have no choice but to pick E, which is all the above, because you're already into a multiple answer situation. Okay. Which is not a mechanical dewatering device. So comminutors is the right answer there. Comminutors, if you remember, for those that didn't get it correct, are basically taking rags and other things and grinding them into smaller pieces. Belt filter press, and vacuum filters are all dewatering devices. So flip back to that PowerPoint or the recordings and take a look at that too. Again, I am pausing a little bit. If anybody had a question on any of these, just please chime in. Very similar to that last question we were talking about. The ultimate disposal of wastewater sludge is, you can put it on land, you can incinerate it, you can sell it as fertilizer, or at the landfill. So the correct answer is all of the above. If you retook for those that didn't get this right after we talked about it, you'd probably get the previous question right, and you'd probably get this one right as well. So. Which is not a classification of a treatment pond. Anoxic is the right answer there. Anoxic is where we're not adding air to a zone, but anoxic is usually a a zone created through manipulation of flow or air in a tank. A lagoon is obviously a treatment pond. Aerobic ponds, anaerobic ponds, facultative ponds. We talked quite a bit about those. So again, it's not a classification of a treatment pond. Chlorine is not applied. Not several of these questions have not. Chlorine is not applied to wastewater systems to control taste is the correct answer there. Now, this rodent answer, yeah, we wouldn't necessarily, I doubt if you'd see this on the exam, but yeah, you wouldn't necessarily be adding chlorine to kill rats or other rodents, but the correct answer they're looking for is taste there. Sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite is definitely in a liquid form. Different chlorine comes in different, you can get or make chlorine from different things, but sodium hypochlorite typically at 12 to 12.5% is in liquid form. Oh, there's the next question. Notes the commercial strength of sodium hypochlorite is 12%, 12.5, something like that. Okay. Yeah, you want to commit that one to memory because I bet you that one will be on the exam for sure, or something really close to it. Yeah, algae is the correct answer there. Not a pathogenic organism. So algae is present in all types of systems. It even grows in the corner of your aeration tanks, depending on the flow. It's on lakes and streams. It's a natural occurring event, and it's not a pathogenic microorganism. Three main functions of WHMIS: training, labeling, MSDS. This or something very similar will be on your exam, and that's, people have to be trained. You have to label the bottles or the containers and the MSDS sheets. So commit that one to memory too. For B, regulation is what would drive a WHMIS program and would make you train people, would make you label and use have supplied MSDS sheets. Okay, it's not a hazard.
Mike,
Yeah.
can you go back to question 40, the one about the bleach that we should commit to memory? The 12%, 15%. Yeah, we don't really deal with chlorine, so we were just wondering why the different percentage, and then why isn't it 15 as well?
Why the answers are there?
No, like the different. Could you just explain it a bit more? Because we don't really deal with chlorine, so we just want a better explanation than just.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when you 12 to 12.5% is if you ordered hypochlorite we get it in sometimes we deal in smaller totes. Sometimes we have 1,000 liter totes that we get it in. It's just supplied at 12 to 12.5%. It's direct from the manufacturer. It's not hypochlorite is something that's not mixed. You can't increase the concentration or decrease the concentration. Hypochlorite is just a liquid form of bleach chlorine, and the commercial strength is 12 to 12.5%. So that's just, like I said, one to commit to memory. The other numbers, you can't take hypochlorite, like it's not, you're not making chlorine on site. You're not making your own version of hypochlorite because it's, the question is saying commercial strength. So it's just the way it's delivered at 12 to 12.5%. You cannot change the concentration of that. I'm not sure if that helps.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, like I said, we don't really deal with chlorine. We just wanted an explanation.
Yeah, no problem. Don't ever say sorry. Like, we're here to, try and explain some of this stuff. You don't deal with liquid or gas chlorine?
No. No.
That's the it's an interesting point. These wastewater exams, water exams they're all the same. There are so many different types of facilities. There are so many different components of a facility, and as an operator, you're tested on things that you may or may not see. You know, I've got some of my staff that have been in my plant for 20, 25 years, never seen a lagoon, wouldn't have anything to do with it. Maybe never even seen a digester. We're building digesters in the next 5 years or something, and it's going to be a whole new learning curve for them. So it's interesting when we do the tests, because they have to test on a wide breadth of things. So you can take your certificate and move to a plant that has chlorine or doesn't have chlorine or has digesters and stuff. So it's just an interesting point that there's a lot of information that gets covered. For things that you deal with every day, the answers are probably pretty easy, and then there's other things that are more of a head scratcher and you have to think about. So yeah, so which is not a hazardous chemical route? Pretty much everybody got that right. Just remember, it's the question is into the human body, and perspiration is going out. Okay. 43, everybody got that right. So that's awesome. 44, which test best measures the efficiency of trickling filter? BOD is the right answer. So efficiency for trickling filter or any other process, you'd be, basically doing some kind of calculation about what's coming in and about what's going out. So in this, the sludge pH is just one of the how the water is, what the condition of it is. Sludge age is what's happening, how long you're keeping things around, and the temperature is again just a condition of where you're at. So to measure the efficiency, majority of people got that right. Just you would be looking at the BOD coming in, the BOD going out. So good answer. Comfort is primary intent of HVAC systems and to promote. The right answer is all of the above. The only one that if I wasn't sure about this question, I was going through it, I wouldn't consider productivity initially. So I'd take that kind of off my list, but I'd be looking at, okay, health, and definitely, HVAC systems could definitely have an impact on the building itself. So then I'm faced with two answers. And so I would default to all of the above. And the majority of people got that right. So. Positive displacement pumps. Yay, everybody got that correct. Which of the following type of pump is start against a closed discharge valve? Now, question is worded a little strangely. Centrifugal pump, definitely the answer there. A piston pump is a positive displacement pump, so you would not close that against the discharge valve. You're going to blow something apart. The question probably would have been better worded is which of the following type of pump can be started against a closed discharge valve, and that would have pointed you probably right towards centrifugal pump. You don't have to start centrifugal pump with the discharge valve, as the question kind of alludes to, but bearings, a centrifugal pump are running hot. You should check lubrication. You bet. Replacement of the bearings would come after the initial inspection. So you check the lubrication, make sure things are greased properly and done properly. If there was still an issue, then you'd be looking at doing the mechanical replacement of the bearings. But the initial step would be check the lubrication. As well, if you think of some of these questions as what your job as an operator, and now I know in some locations and especially in smaller plants, an operator is kind of like a jack of all trades, so they do a lot of things, including maintenance. A lot of plants, though, they don't do as much maintenance. They would definitely do lubrication, to be checking bearings and seals, but they may or may not. The majority of the time, wouldn't replace the bearing. You'd have somebody else do that. So you can kind of think of it two different ways there. Problem of cavitation in centrifugal pumps is usually due to high suction lift. So I'm glad that nobody picked C and D, so that's awesome. So high suction head and high suction lift. So head is on the discharge of the pump and suction lift is on the suction side. So if you have a high suction lift, it's going to require more to get water into that pump, and if it's too much, you're going to be starving that centrifugal pump, which is then going to be spinning and causing that cavitation. Suction head on the discharge side, you know, if that pump's full and pumping, it shouldn't cause an issue. I guess you could take it to the nth degree, and if the suction head was so high that it wouldn't allow the pump to pump, that you could create cavitation because the water wouldn't be moving. But typically in a normal situation, it's all any cavitation problems would be related to lift because it can't get the water into the pump itself. Packing gland. So yeah, so you're providing a bit of a seal there for sure. Packing gland does not hold the shaft at all. Excuse me. Okay, so if you remember, the packing glands are the piece of packing they're put in, providing the seal there, allowing water to drops of water to flow through, so you have some cooling and stuff. But the main role is to provide the seal. But it would not hold the shaft. That's not what they're designed for. That's what your bearings and all that supports do. Okay. Excuse me. I'm just going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to take a 5-minute break to grab a coffee. But let's go through a couple more. Voltages commonly used in the water industry range from, these are tough questions. I'll give you that much. It depends on your location. It depends where you are. It depends what you have in your plant. If I was looking at this and question, let's start with the answer B. So 12 volt, okay, 24 volt, you're typically using batteries. If I had a genset that had a battery, it'd probably be a 12 volt kind of system. In answer A, 6 they are 6 volt batteries, but we wouldn't typically use those, in our system. 110 and 220. So now you're talking normal household voltages in your office or plugins around the plant. And then you jump up to 460, 480, 4160. So medium and high voltage. And that's the only way to break this down. If you looked at these answers, these other three don't include the high voltage, which is 4160, which definitely should be considered when you're answering this question, because you have low, medium, and high voltage. So make sure you take a really good look at that. These other ones stop at 600, 450, excuse me, which are typically what you'd see in your plant running your equipment probably. But on the other side of that, if you back up from the plant, you'd have the transformer, and the incoming power is going to be like 4160, and then transform down to 600, 400, 480, that kind of thing. And we'll go through this last question, and then we're going to take a just quick 5-minute break. But amp is the unit of measuring resistance to electrical current. The electrical term is called amperage, and that is Sorry, I'm just reading this question again. Okay, and that's false. Most people got that correct. Any questions on that one? That's not a very well worded question, for sure, but the majority of the people got that right. Before we take a quick break so I can top up my water and stuff, my throat's getting a little dry. Any questions so far? Like, how did people feel taking an exam? Were you comfortable? Did you feel a high level of stress? I'm just really kind of curious. Anybody want to comment and tell me what their thoughts are?
Yes, I was relatively comfortable. It didn't seem very hard to me. It's just that, like I said, because I wasn't attending most of the classes, I struggled a bit. But to me personally, the questions were not hard. Even the maths, I got most of the math questions correct, and I had attended most of the classes. But it's just because of my lack of attendance.
Yeah. And then, like you said, we talked about that's understandable. You've got a lot of things going on, for sure. Anybody else want to chime in on what they thought about the exam so far?
I was highly stressed because I had to be back and forth between trying to get the blower working and taking the exam because I saw there was a time limit on it. So I came here at 8. I tried to do the exam within 3 hours. I got it done in 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I was stressed because I had to be back and forth. So, which means that it's actually quite cool if I'm not on this working conditions because I'm always at work on a Thursday morning, it seems. Always.
Yeah, and yeah, I hear you. I do, and if you're taking,
I apologize for putting you under such pressure, but I was trying to put it in an exam setting as best as possible. But subsequently, I had some concerns expressed by some other participants, so we left it open until Monday morning. So it's not to pressure you.
Honestly, I try to do it under the exam conditions too. That's the only way to truly experience the test. So but I did pass, so I at least still grateful that.
I think it's good to do them under an exam type session. So at least you're the more you do it like that. So when you sit down to do the 3-hour exam, the official exam, at least you're kind of prepped and ready for that kind of thing. It does show. You make a really good point though. When you're doing these things, you need time set aside to study, time set aside to sit the exam and prepare for these things. Because if you are trying to work, do other things, or you're being interrupted, it really takes your focus off what you're doing. So it's important to get that 3 hours set aside and be totally focused on what you're doing and get that through, because it doesn't take much as you're trying to think through questions and exams, and then somebody pops into the office and asks you something or a piece of equipment because you're supposed to be running the plant and taking this exam at the same time. Something breaks down and you don't have any choice. You got to walk away from what you're doing. So really interesting point for sure.
Yeah, because on that point, I actually just clicked some of the boxes wrong. Even though
you were just guessing at the exam. No, thanks. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I actually clicked the wrong answer because I had to get back up at that time. So I just clicked the answer. So the 1 or 2 of them, it was many, isn't it? 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's okay. It's there's nothing like, again, I don't want everybody guessing or on all the exam, but if you're running short of time, if you're down to the last 5-10 minutes and you've got questions left that you're not going to be able to figure out, you have no choice but to take a stab at it as best you can, because like I said, if it's blank, it's wrong, and at least you'd have a chance of getting it right. And more than likely you probably did well on the exam, so a couple marks here or there may not matter, but you definitely don't want to leave it blank. So cool. Any other thoughts on taking the exam?
Well, I was quite pleased. My my only disappointment, I think we still have the usual people who participate. So, but we have many more people registered. They didn't participate in the exam, but that was good. And those who participated, I think we had about over 50%, about a 50% pass rate. And I saw some good scores by some people I would not mention. I think they've been pretty consistent. That's very good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some people did really, really well, which is awesome. There was also quite a few that were like really close, and that's why I'm hoping, although it's probably a review for some of the people here today, but just going through the questions and explaining them, I hope you're finding some value on that, because there was quite a few people that, you know, there was at least, I think it was 4 or 5 or 6 people that were so close to achieving a pass mark, and it just maybe needed to slow down and understand the questions or explain them a little more, or provide a little bit of information just to help them in that right direction. So, okay, so if we could take 5, and then we'll be right back and we'll finish up the rest of these.
Okay, well, so we're gonna take a break now. Okay, a 5-minute break begins now.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. All right. So question 54, which is not a common drive? Warp drive. For all the Star Trek fans, you must have got that right, because that's where that is. You know, belt, chain, and VFD drives are all common drives. So warp drive is definitely not a common drive. Corrosion is caused by the reaction between metallic pipe and its surroundings. It's true. For those that didn't get that right, just take a quick review of the cathodic protection section that we talked about. And thank you everyone for taking a quick break, because it's 6 o'clock in the morning here and I needed my coffee. So I appreciate that. Type of cathodic protection is called, that's what we talked about, the cathodic protection quite a bit, sacrificial anode and galvanic systems. So they are metered, but they're not classified as a metered system. Like you meter the voltage that you're sending out there, but this is asking for the type of system. So D is the right answer there, which the majority of people got. Cross connection is to find an actual potential connection between potable and non-potable supply. That's true, and the majority of people got that correct as well. Reverse flow to the back pressure, 100% correct. Good answers. Which of the following is not a backflow preventer? Gate valve is the right answer there. So the air gaps, definitely that's the physical separation. So that is considered a backflow preventer there, because you actually have a physical gap. So just think about that. What's the common color of septic sewage? Keyword there is septic. So if it's gone septic, it's black. You've got rising bubbles. You got all kinds of stuff going on there. So black is the right answer there. Gray would be the common color of normal domestic sewage coming into your plant. Brown would be more so the color of things in the aeration tank, but it's asking for the common color of septic sewage. Okay. And that leads right into this question. So what's the common color of aerated mixed liquor? It'd be brown. And we talked about the gray and black already. Just have to bring up my chat box. It keeps disappearing. There we go. Which of the following is an inorganic substance? So silicone. The right answer there. Plastic cups are, they're inorganics, but it's more of a thing, not a substance. So the only way to explain that one. Not all wastewater contains solid material. Not quite sure how to explain that any more than, you know, it's solid material is solids, right? And, or in this question, I guess it could be, you know, something that's actually physically solid, but not the best worded question. And you're going to run across questions in your exams that, you know, they're not worded the best either, but the majority of the people did get this correct. So good answers. Increased chlorine demand. Organic matter, most definitely. pH, alkalinity do have an effect on chlorine and its chlorine's effectiveness, but increased chlorine demand is your organic matter, your, you know, your BOD load, that type of thing, BOD, COD loading. So C, organic matter, is the right answer there, which the majority of people got correct. Trickling filter, about 35% void space. That's correct. If you're working yourself through this question, for the people that pick C and D, if you think about 40% void spaces and 60% are quite a bit of space. So if I didn't know the answer to this question and I was trying to figure it out, I'd take C and D right off the list right away, because that's a lot. So then I'd be struggling between A and B. If you remember, I'm quite sure we talked about it in our PowerPoint somewhere, but 35% would be approximately where you need to be. BOD. Yeah, so we'll talk about this one just briefly. BOD, or for those that answered B, BOD is biochemical oxygen demand. But when you see BOD 5, that's the 5-day test. So BOD on its own would be if you're testing in your plant, your efficiency removal or some type of something to do in your facility. But BOD 5 is what they do in the lab with the 5-day test. So for those that got that correct, good for picking up on that. For those that, for the person that picked B, just remember when you see 5, BOD 5 is the 5-day test. Okay. This process is a biological method of wastewater treatment is performed by a variable of mixed community of organisms in an aerobic aquatic environment. You're going to see questions similar to this. They're really long worded. So if you have to work through it, you just have to pick them all apart, you know. So it's biological, variable, a mixed community of organisms, and aerobic and aquatic. So you have air and it's water, you got different microorganisms in there, and that's explaining activated sludge. Okay. Activated sludge is the most common form of secondary treatment. There are many different types of active sludge, but all have 3 basic components. The majority of the people got this right. For those that didn't, I'll focus on the answers that were wrong. So for B, aeration tank, secondary clarifier, right? Sludge disposal system is not part of secondary treatment. How you deal with your biosolids, how you get rid of them, is not part of secondary treatment itself. It's another part of the process. And for D, primary clarifier is part of the primary and not the secondary treatment. Okay. So take your time, read the answers closely. The majority of the people got this right. So aeration tank, secondary clarifier, sludge recycle system. Everything, all of those 3 components are part of secondary treatment. Great many variations in waste stabilization ponds are possible due to the difference in depth, operating conditions, loadings. current literature generally uses 3 broad pod classifications. We talked about ponds quite a bit, and D is the right answer there. C, definitely cryogenic. That'd be no. B, diurnal is the wrong answer there, and that's diurnal flow to your possibly your plant. And then A, the wrong part the wrong part there is anoxic. So we don't classify ponds by anoxic at all. Those are just zones that you would create. So the correct answer is D. Biofilters utilize natural microorganisms, convert inorganic contaminants to carbon dioxide and water. That's false. So biofilters may have organisms that are consuming the odor in the biofilter, depending on the type of biofilter, but you're definitely not converting or creating water or necessarily carbon dioxide. What is not a property of elemental chlorine? Chlorine, so explosive is the right answer there. Okay, so chlorine does have the yellowish greenish tinge when you release it. It's 2.5 times heavier than air and does support combustion. On its own, it's not explosive though. Make sure you commit that one to memory. There will be similar chlorine questions, and especially I'm glad that I'm not sure, I can't remember who mentioned it this morning, but a lot of people may not deal with chlorine, so make sure you really pay attention to or memorize that kind of stuff. Okay. Hypochlorous acid is the more active component in the disinfection process that uses chlorine. That's true. Calcium hypochlorite may be purchased as a solid. That's true. So sodium hypochlorite is the liquid, calcium hypochlorite is the solid component. Okay. Chemical formula for hypochlorous acid is HOCl. The majority of people got that right. UV light disinfects by inactivation. We talked about quite a bit about UV disinfection, and so impregnates the cell membrane. Doesn't allow the microorganisms to reproduce, so they've been inactivated or sterilized, and then they die off on their normal cycle. Most filters used in treatment are blank filters, and rapid sand filters are correct there. They classify rapid sand filters because of the amount of flow going through, so it wouldn't be a slow sand filter. Pressure sand filter, definitely not, and earth is not what most wastewater plants would be used to filtering their water. Okay, so just remember it would be classified as rapid sand filter. Okay. 77, everybody got that correct?
1 second, can you repeat that for me? My net dropped at that time. You said it's rapid sand because of the flow?
That's correct. That's okay. If you're going to look at it, it'd be classified as rapid sand filter, right? So I'm not sure if anybody deals with filters or not, but the sand filters themselves are like a lot of them are, the majority of them are some kind of dual media. So you've got anthracite and sand. The footprint for sand filters is not all that large in comparison to the treatment plant itself. So the flow going through there would classify that as a rapid sand filter rather than a slow sand filter. 77, everybody got that correct, so that's awesome. 78, anaerobic digestion normally operates at 35 degrees Celsius. Good answer. You get into higher temperatures, you're into thermophilic. I think we talked about digestion, the 3 different types of digesters, which are classified by temperature settings. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. Commit the mesophilic digestion to memory, because that's the majority of digesters you're going to run across are mesophilic digestion at about 35 degrees Celsius. Okay. The phosphate removal process, the basin in which the lime slurry is blended with the wastewater as rapidly as possible with the use of high-speed mixer is called. I can see. Just trying to, I'm pausing for a second because I'm trying to think about explaining this.
Hi, even when I checked the notes, I'm pretty sure it's all flash mix. I don't know if I looked at the wrong thing, but I saw flash mixer.
I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm just trying to think of the best way to explaining this. So in my experience, okay, so we can take answers A and B off the, you know, they are mixed tanks, but they're blending tanks would be what we mixed up and we're blending it with something else. So you can take that one off. The, you know, they are mixed tanks, but when you look at the question, it's looking rapidly as possible with a high speed mixer, we can take mixed tank off that. And a mixed tank would typically be just a mixer in a tank running at a slower rate. So then you're left with rapid mix and flash mix. Flash mix systems are more so used in water treatment, especially when you're dealing with liquid polymers, that type of scenario. Maybe even liquid alum if you're mixing it. And the flash mix would be more so, like I said, in water treatment, where you're trying to inject and mix this flow into an incoming flow of, so you're adding polymer, you're adding alum, you have to flash mix it in the system as fast as possible with the influent flow that's coming in. So all I can say is just rapid mix system, and the word rapidly in the question might point you in the right direction. I know it's not the best answer, but that's all I have. Sorry.
Okay, question. So the high speed mixer is called a flash mixer, but the process is called a rapid mix. That's what it is.
Yes.
Okay, because I had to pull back at the PowerPoint, and in PowerPoint it has a high speed mixer called a flash mixer. So that's why I think a lot of people chose flash.
Okay. Yeah. No, fair enough. And I'm very glad that you guys are keeping the PowerPoints around and referring to them for sure. So, nitrogen removal from wastewater is not accomplished by centrifuging. That's correct. Okay. Centrifuging is your dewatering process. So you would, if you wanted to step back from that, you know, centrifuging would help you remove phosphorus, maybe, because the microorganisms have absorbed phosphorus, and then you're removing it from your system as well as balancing your solids. But it definitely does not have anything to do with nitrogen removal. Biological denitrification is a process by which microorganisms reduce nitrate to nitrogen gas, then release it to the atmosphere, and that is correct. That's the basis of the type of facility we have in Kelowna. It's a BNR facility, biological nutrient removal, and it's ammonia to nitrate to nitrogen gas. So mechanical dewatering systems use some type of mechanical device to separate the liquid and the solid fractions of the sludge. The most mechanical dewatering devices are, yeah, so this is very similar to the question that we had earlier. And centrifuging, belt filter presses, and filter presses are all commonly used. So I did mention my preference, which was centrifuges, but all three of those are common. Treated effluent cannot be released to river water, and that's false. It can, depending on your effluent stream and your requirements for effluent disposal, but it can. So we didn't talk a lot about, we touched on sludge incinerators. I'm going to take a guess that hopefully you won't see very many questions on your exam on incinerators. You might see a few, but it's good to have a few questions in this mock exam, just so you're thinking about it. And we did cover it in the PowerPoints. So multiple hearth and fluidized bed incinerators are ones that you typically see questions on the exam. Not so much the electric incinerators. Fire tube boiler is a boiler. Basically, you have, for those that aren't aware, basically you have a tank of some shape, usually a cylinder in shape. You've got tubes that run from one end to the other. There's water on the outside of those tubes, and whether it's methane gas or natural gas that's fired, it's actually fire or gas that's ignited flowing through those tubes, and that's why they call it a fire tube boiler. So you're actually burning natural or methane gas through those tubes, heating up the tube, which then heats up the water on the outside. Now, we didn't talk about boilers because this isn't a power engineering course, but that's what a fire tube boiler is. Activated sludge aerator dissolved oxygen should be between typical answer you're going to see is between 1 and 2 milligrams per liter. That depends on the placement in the aeration tank and what you're going to add. And also, I know that sometimes operators struggle with this question because different facilities use different DO concentrations. Different facilities have different processes, so it might require, what you're used to might be different than something else, but typically in an aeration tank, it's between 1 and 2. Anything less than 1, you're not providing enough oxygen for the microorganisms. And anything over 2, then you're providing too much air, which could be dispersing your flock. It might cause for lysing or some other kind of issues going on. So typical answer there, or the correct answer there is B, between 1 and 2. The majority got this one correct, which is awesome. So the blank provides a direct measured amount of food and available for use by human organisms. So that's food to microorganism ratio. I don't know how to explain that any more than it's, the question itself gives you an F to M, it's talking food and microorganisms. So it's an F to M ratio. So for anybody that didn't get that correct, just make sure you understand, not the calculation how to figure out, but exactly what an FM ratio is. The SVI provides a measure of how well the sludge is settled in the secondary clarifier. Is defined as volume occupied by ground mixed liquor suspended solids after 30 minutes of settling, and that's true. So a really long-winded question to say the SVI is a 30-minute settling test. but congratulations to the majority of people that figured that out, right? 88, if sludge solids are not accumulated in secondary clarifier, they may be removed by an average rate of blank to which they were applied. So if you, trying to think, I just want to make sure I explain this properly. So if you look at the question, it says sludge solids are, if you don't want them to build up in your secondary clarifier, you have to remove them at the same rate as which they're coming into the clarifier. Right? Lesser would allow the solids to build up in the clarifier. Greater would definitely not allow for a buildup of solids, but you're also then returning a lot of water from your secondary clarifier that you don't have to. So the correct answer there, which the majority of people got, is equal. Sludge age is defined as the total mass of solids in the system divided by the mass of solids into the system each day. So any comments on that one? So we had a lot of people pick true. We had a few people picked false. No comments?
Well, me personally, I just guessed that one because I didn't know.
Hey, well, that's okay. At least you answered it. So sludge age, think about it this way. So if you're in previous questions where in the exam, you're talking about sludge age is calculated in days. So your sludge is 8 days, 12 days, 14 days. So it's not by entering each day, it's how long solids are maintained in the system, not on a day-to-day basis. So the answer is false. Determination of dissolved oxygen concentration in mixed liquor or final effluent should be carried out blank during peak load periods once a day. That's correct. So once a week would definitely not be enough. Twice a day, if you think about your diurnal loadings, you'd have to potentially be there after work hours to catch the peak of the second load. So once a day for sure. Majority of plants have SCADA systems, so you have online monitoring to monitor that for you. But if you were looking at your dissolved oxygen concentrations, it'd be at least once a day. And the reason it's done during peak loading periods is you want to make sure you have enough air in your system during the highest level of flow to your plant. Okay. Appreciable quantities of sludge or burping to the surface of primary settling tanks may indicate. So let's just step through this one. Answer A, worms that have nothing to do in the settling tank. Actually, you may see worms in a secondary or sand filters more so than in a settling tank. Excessive scrub sludge scraper feed would actually, you wouldn't see the burping or sludge being in there, septic sludge, because it would be moving so fast, it would just keep pushing the sludge to the hopper, so it would be removed. So that one wouldn't be the answers. Grit chamber is not removing grit. Grit, it would be hopefully non-organic, so it wouldn't be directly related to septic sludge or burping. So the correct answer is D, sludge not being pumped in a significant quantity. So it's sitting in the tank too long, it's starting to go septic. '92, not supplying enough air will cause, yeah, so we'll step through this one as well. If you don't supply enough air, your effluent quality is definitely not going to improve. It's going to decrease because you're not providing the treatment required. Sorry, I dropped my pen. Excessive turbulence would not be there because you're not supplying enough air. And slick spots show up on compartment walkways. That wouldn't be the issue either. You know, walkways have nothing to do with the amount of air supplied. So correct answer is turbidity and final effluent increase. Basically, you're not providing the treatment that you need to, so you're having carryover into your secondary clarifiers, which is then going to more than likely make it through to your final effluent. The majority of people got that right. Given the data below, what is most likely cause of the extended duration facility problem? DO level high, blower normal, wastewater characteristics normal, drop air pipe and control valve open, service turbulence are high. So you're going to see questions definitely on your exam and some of these scenario type questions. We did, someone mentioned that we want to do a few more scenario questions. I think we did some the last session we were together. So you just need to step through these things. You know, like 50% of the people got it right, which is great. So the DO level is high. So let's just pause there for a minute. So we got too much air in the tank. Then we move to the next section. Is the blower is normal? So there's nothing wrong with the blower. It's not high temperature, it's not high vibration. So we've got too much air and the blower is running normally. Wastewater characteristics are normal. So there's no high loading, there's no issues there. So that's fine. And the drop pipe control valve open and the service turbulence is high. So if you look at your answers, now, if you didn't have these answers in front of you, I would hope that you could go, there's definitely a problem with the drop pipe air control valve, right? But if we look at the answers provided, air relief valve stuck shut. So that's air relief, it's what blows off excess of air from the blower. None of our scenarios in that question talk about any high pressures, so we can get rid of that one. I'm going to skip B. I'm going to go down and see blower speeds too slow. The blower is running normally and it's running at a slow speed. It can run slow or fast than normal and still be running normally. You wouldn't have the high DO level. You'd actually have a lower DO level because you can't get the air in there. So we take C off. Drop air control valves not open far enough. You would have low DO if that was the question. You'd have back pressure in your system and the air relief would be open. So the only one you're left with is the blower speed is too fast. Okay. Questions on that one? Okay. The sludge depth in the secondary sediment tanks too high. What will happen? Majority of people got this right. It's anything to do with sludge being kept too long. Depth is too high, so it's again being kept too long. There's too much in there. Everything relates to a potential septic situation. Okay. What might cause white filamentous growth in an RBC system, which will result in poorer BOD removal? So not so much the pH. I would, yeah, you want to stick away from the pH, whether it's an RBC system or any kind of aerobic system. You know, white filamentous growth, definitely. You know, some septic wastewater would cause part of that. Low BOD loading. Low BOD could you might see some white crisp foam, but it's talking about filamentous bacteria here, so you have to default to the septic wastewater. That's kind of a tricky question, that one, depending on what you read there. But okay. Pump station maintenance reports, all of the above. Okay, so any special equipment required. So if you're heading out there, you want to know what you have to take with you. Repairs that were made, additional maintenance required. So definitely D, all of the above. Excuse me. 97, everybody got that right. So it's awesome. Every day, the operator of a small wastewater plant should determine all the plant equipment is operational. For the ones that chose answer A, cleaning settling basins, disposing of sludge may be part of your duties, and in larger facilities, many operators are working in a section of that facility on each day. So you might be in dewatering or you might be in secondary, but the question is small wastewater plants. And so in a small plant, an operator definitely has to make sure that all the equipment is operational. There are generally more limitations on authority the farther one blank in the organization descends. Yeah, so as you go down the ranks, there's more limitations. So what you have authority to buy or spend or sign for or do your job, assign tasks, however it is, whatever limitations are put on a person, but depending on their who they work for. But as you descend, you have more limitations. Hopefully the explanation helped with that one a bit, and there'll be questions similar to that on the exam too. So think about that. When an employee breaks the rules and requires discipline, who's generally responsible for administrating it? The correct answer there is supervisor. You may have HR involved, you may have upper management involved, depending on the level of discipline, but the direct supervisor administers the day-to-day operation of the facility and deals with staffing that's there as well. So it's the supervisor at the end of the day. So that's the last of the questions that we went through. I think everybody, like I said, for those that passed initially, congratulations. There's a bulk of people that were very, very close, and I'm hoping that stepping through these questions today provided some clarification. This is not a copy of the exam you're going to write, but it's a really good indication of the types of questions, how the questions are worded. You're in a time setting, so it's close to what you're going to experience. The wording in the questions, they're from ABC and not from Canada, so wording might be a little bit different. Just remember to slow down and really understand those questions as best you can. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to talk about on the exam or the course in general? I'll just, before I let you ask me any questions, I definitely, again, I appreciate everybody taking part in this. Doing it online is challenging for sure. So the fact that you're committed, sticking with it every day or every week, I appreciate that. We did have a couple of hiccups with some health issues and stuff, but we worked through that. So thank you for being patient. I will throw it out there that, I'm more than willing, depending on how the exam results go, if Ignatius and Valerie need few more sessions to go over material with people, I'll definitely volunteer some more time to help you out with that. Please remember, if you don't pass the exam, it's not the end of the world. Use it as a learning curve. And if you get 67, it's like, oh man, I just missed it by 3. Well, you actually got 33 wrong. So take the responses from the exam, look at the sections that you had some trouble with, refer to the PowerPoints. My contact information has been provided. If you have questions that I can, if you want to send them to me, or we can get on a quick Zoom call or something to help explain some things that you don't understand after the exam. So whatever you need, we're here to help you out as best as possible. Again, face-to-face is always I think a little nicer, but you know, the world it is, we're dealing with what we can right now. So any questions on the exam, what to expect, stuff we've covered, anything at all?
Good morning again, everybody. Mike, this is a question that was in the last exam I did, and it was not anything to do with treatment or anything. The question was, if a customer calls in and is using abusive language, what should you do? And the responses of the four, I knew what I would do.
Yeah, I know what I do. I know what I do too, but
but to me, it was a very interesting question. One of the responses were, do you report it and call the police? Do you just listen and allow them to think? I couldn't remember them because what I would have done was not in the four. So that was a serious minimal thing there. But I was just wondering if there is, just in case something like that pops up again in another exam in the future. I know that Ignatius said that he's changing what format we might get, but what were they looking for in that one?
I don't have the question, the answers in front of me, but I can, number one, I can guarantee that what I would like to do is not on the answers as well. So I echo your comments there, but when you're dealing, basically what they're looking at is, we're all considered public servants. We're paid for by public tax dollars or government dollars. And so something along the lines of always being respectful, being polite. But on the other hand, you do not have to put up with being abused. So something about maybe forwarding to someone else, or taking down the information, or simply politely and respectfully. Again, that's probably not what we'd like to do, but politely and respectfully, just say that you do not have to handle that abuse, and then disconnect the call. So I would assume it's going to be like one of those three kind of things.
Okay, thanks very much, and thank you for all of your time that you offered us.
I hope it was helpful. Judging by the results on the mock exam, it looks like we definitely hit a few things, which is awesome. So hopefully everybody found it some benefit. Was there anybody else had any questions or comments, or are you all ready for the exam? All pumped up and excited? Everybody's going, no. Nobody likes to sit exams, but everybody's put in a lot of time and effort, and just relax when you get there. Really read the questions, take your time, go through it. Ignatius, like I said, following the exam, if you guys want to, whatever I can do to help, if you need some follow-up sessions or just talk about the exams or whatever it is, just let Valerie know, and I'll make some time available.
So
Hello, Mike.
Yes.
On behalf of Water Authority, we're doing it as a group, and so we would like to thank you so much for all of your advice on the exams, and we look forward to making you proud.
Oh, great, thank you. Good.
Yeah, thanks. Everybody says thank you.
Yay. You guys are going to do awesome.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for your participation, and I want to wish you well. And that's what we are around to do at CAWASA. And I would like to thank you, especially Mike, for all the time that you've given us, and being up at 5 a.m. every week, or maybe 4 a.m. for that matter. And even through your difficult moments, you made time for us. So we really appreciate this. And we hope that the participants will excel at their exams next week.
You're welcome.
Certainly, we'll keep in touch with Valerie and with the Operators Without Borders.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the comments, and yeah, it's been my pleasure. It's been a great group. It's interesting as you move along. You know, nobody. The first couple sessions, people don't know each other. Then you start having some communications, and you start joking around a little bit, which is good. So it's been a pleasure, and I just want to thank everybody for taking part, and best of luck next week.
Okay. All the best, everyone. Good luck.
All right, take care.
Nation John signing out from CAWASA.
Bye.
Session number 10. Bye.